All right. Today was a wild day. Um, Went from in pre-market with my overnights in Click and MVST. At the low was down 600. I think a little over 600 actually, and brought my day back to 553.64 in the green. So solid day. Unfortunately, left a lot on the table with CISO, and SDM. Big pops, big drops, and I was able to scale nicely through the push, but was looking for a little more, and unfortunately held a little too long. Not mad, stayed patient and rode the trend as long as it held up, but in hindsight, probably could have cut a little bit earlier. So overall, market seems to have found a top for now. SPY had a big sell-off day today, with a ton of selling pressure. I'm thinking that we make our way down to 550, 540 area. Get a bounce somewhere in there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 525 maybe to fill this gap, even though we had already filled it, or fill this gap actually, and then hold for that to then push back up. So we'll see how SPY reacts tomorrow. I'm hoping that with this outflow of funds from large caps and megas, we get an inflow into small and nano caps the rest of the week. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple of days. Definitely will be scaling down a bit, and will be most likely won't hold anything overnight. Yeah, most likely won't hold anything overnight the rest of this week, unless I have an unbelievable entry. And will be a lot more cognizant and selective in my entries, in that I want to make sure that they are absolutely all A plus. And I know I say that a lot, and that I tend to still find myself in B or C setups, but I do want to make sure that I am in quality setups, especially with the state of the current environment. So we'll see what tomorrow has in store, and hopefully we get a couple of runners, and hopefully I'm in the right tickers and I take advantage of whatever opportunities present themselves the rest of the week. I am heading down to the beach house tonight, so I won't be on my main setup, but I do have a dual monitor desktop at the beach house, so at my in-laws beach house. So it's not a laptop. I do have a desk with a desktop, so fortunately I will have a decent setup, but going from 4 screens to 2 screens can be it will limit my ability to scan as efficiently as I do now, but all good, make do with what I got, and again, just try and take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves the rest of the week. So go from there. We'll start off with AMST. AMST was something that I took in pre-market, or at the open. This was one where it was kind of this pop and drop into a potential curl play, and if we look, all right, little girl, we're gonna calm down. Let's go back to sleep. All right. If we look at the multi-day structure, what we'll see here on 516 is that price had broken above that multi-day point of control and held up there really nicely. So I started taking a small position somewhere in here, I believe. No, I took it in here and then sold in this candle right here. That's exactly what happened. And it pushed up really nicely thereafter. Unfortunately, I didn't have it. I wouldn't have made all that much money on it, considering I only bought 100 shares. But again, it was just something that, you know, I was trying to get a feel for. I would have sized in if it started to move, but unfortunately, it did not have the buying pressure necessary to get it to go. All right, we're back. Yeah, so AMST just not not something that got enough buying pressure to get the break, the necessary break that it needed to push back up to that $4 and even potentially $5 level. So something I'll keep on my radar. I don't like this sell-off into after hours. We'll probably take this off of my radar tomorrow, but we'll see. I'll keep it on my secondary just in case it catches some Momo at some point, but outside of that, off my radar. ASST, this was an unbelievable catch. So I had looked at this in pre-market at the multi-day structure, and it was above the multi-day point of control. But for some reason, I kept it on my secondary, just because it was still under the 30-minute 9 SMA when I did my scan. And if we go to 5-7. Okay, so it was well above that multi-day structure point of control, but it did build a really nice volume node at this level here, at 761 area, 775 area, and it broke above in pre-market. So someone called it out at the $8 mark, or just sub $8. And I pulled it up, and I really liked this base that was building at $8. We had a nice little cup and handle here. Once it broke 8, I slapped 200 shares. Now, in hindsight, I obviously should have slapped significantly more, but that being said, I did not feel comfortable All right. So I slapped 200 shares. Should have slapped 500 to 1,000. I mean, obviously, in hindsight, should have taken 1,000. Um, but yeah, took 200 shares there. Wanted to make sure that I was limiting my size in case this did flush down to say 790, 780 or so. You know, I didn't want to be out $100 to $200. I wanted to make sure that I was limiting my risk. So you know that would have been $20, $40, whatever. So really should have taken that 500 shares, but again, just hesitated on that. This just launched, absolutely launched, and I ended up scaling way too soon, but scaled into strength. Took 860, and then took 940 and 941 up here. It pulled back, and I was thinking, man, I got out too early. This feels like it has a magnet to 10, which it ultimately got. 1050? No, it almost went to 11. And I was gonna try and get back in somewhere in here, but I just said, you know what? I'll take my $200. At that point, I was down, a little over $300. Between Click, CLIK in pre-market, and MVST. So I was just happy to get, a really nice quick trade with a pretty solid profit for 5 minutes, 6 minutes worth of charting. So really, really nice push there. Caught significant Momo, and then faded the rest of the day. Tried to get a little backside pop there, but nothing much. Wasn't something that was on my radar after it faded at the open. So just really, really nice push. 4 hour looked rock solid. 4 hour had this really nice just pull back, break back above the 9, and then kind of chop sideways stair step, and then just blast right through this prior high to make a new 52-week high. So really, really nice. I don't like this selling pressure here. Probably we'll see this continue to fade lower, but just capitalized and executed on the opportunity there. So that was great. BTCS, I'm really surprised that the Bitcoin, blockchain and miners have not been performing nearly as well, considering Bitcoin itself has been hitting near all-time highs, at least on the futures market it has. So really, really odd. I wish I had overnighted this, obviously. In hindsight, could have been a really nice opportunity there, but I didn't. And that being said, I tried to take a little stab at it today. Wanted to get involved, or I got involved in here for just a small win. Took small size, and then was going to look to add at the break of 304 at that pre-market high. But it just got really, really sketchy in here. I did not like these wicks. Recognized these wicks and told myself, man, you have been telling yourself for the past couple of days, every time you see these big wicks, you still gravitate towards them with the slightest bit of buying pressure, and it never works out in your favor. So I told myself, just cut it, and you can always get back in. So that's what I did, took my $20 and walked away. It faded pretty hard thereafter, basically back down to the daily lows. And then in here, right here, it perked up right here, and it was kind of testing this downtrend resistance level right here. And Bitcoin was making a push. So I was thinking to myself, man, maybe this is it where this starts to curl. The 30-minute looked pretty rock solid with a nice hammer, more of a doji, but a longer, lower wick, nice, decent hammer, and then a nice green push here, which was where I was looking to get involved. But unfortunately it faded and then pushed right here. So actually I was looking to get involved in the prior candle. But it faded here down to 80. I watched it fade to 87. and then I took it off my radar, and then it ultimately pushed up to 305, and then faded thereafter. So yeah, just really surprised that this is not held up as well as Bitcoin itself with BTC. Oh, it did hit all-time highs today. Yeah, hit all-time highs today. Wow. Yeah, so just really interesting. Man, I was looking to buy Bitcoin down here, and I was going to buy it in the 80s. I was going to buy BITO, BITO, the ETF, and I didn't. Man. Quick 30% would have been nice. Damn. Oh well, is what it is. So that was that. CISO. This one was wild, and this is one that I've been trading in and out of, and I'm really, really, really trying to do a better job of swinging these types of opportunities, because I was buying this in the 60s in this candle here, and I was even trading it through here, looking for this inverse head and shoulders break. I thought this was the one, the right shoulder, but it wanted a little bit more here, so it got that right there. But anyway, now it has more of a cup and handle type look, where we have the nice cup and the handle here. It broke out of this little bull flag yesterday, so I bought yesterday. I can't remember if I lost on it. I think I lost money on it. And then today it just, I had an alert set for 140 or 150, excuse me, 150 break. It broke 150 here. I took a quick scalp, and it was clearly extended, but it was, I felt as though there was an opportunity to maybe see this just push straight to, like, say 160 or so, and then fade. Luckily I got a decent fill. I just slapped the sell market, and I think the bid was at 152, so I was looking to just lose $10 on the trade, but it ended up filling me at 156, so I ended up making $30 on that. Pulled back, and I kept this on my radar, and then down here I said to myself, all right, this is holding this gap right here. It's faded pretty aggressively right here, and was the 5 minute? Yeah, so the 5 minute, it tapped the 9 SMA, and I thought to myself, all right, I can either buy here and define my risk as a really, really tight risk, where I know that, anything below 144 I'm going to cut, or I can sit on my hands and be pissed if this goes higher. So I said to myself, all right, this meets all of the criteria I typically find when, we get a really hard pullback, swift pullback with big selling pressure to some sort of support level. So I'm going to buy that support level. And then if it doesn't go in my favor, well, then I'm out $30 with slippage. I guess $40 really, because I probably would have sold at 143 and I got in at 147. It ended up working in my favor. It pushed up a little bit, and I was gonna start scaling out here because I did recognize, this sell-off candle right here. It clearly had to break that level in order for it to go. So I knew that it was going to find resistance at that level at 150, which is also just the $0.50 and psychological level. So it pulled back, and then I said to myself, all right, it's holding this VWAP somewhat. Let me start to scale back in, or scale in a little bit more, because I did only have 500 shares. So I started to scale in a bit here, got 148, or 149, 148, and then it pulled back a little bit more, and I cut it. And then and the reason why I cut it was because I didn't want to get caught where, this flushed below this 144 level, and then I was out, whatever it was, because I was really mindful that one, the 9 pulling back pretty aggressively here and looking to converge with the 50. But also, just mentally, I was already down so much in pre-market, and I was starting to reestablish myself to either break even or in the green, that I didn't want to get caught where I was back in the red deep. So I thought to myself, I'll just cut it here, and I can always get back in if it bounces off of that level. And that's exactly what it did. It bounced off that level, and I thought to myself, man, I probably shouldn't have gotten out there, but I have the ability to get back in at a cheaper price. So that's exactly what I did. I bought back in 1,000 shares. It pushed up. It pulled back here, and I said, all right, this looks like it's the last shake as the 9 is starting to kind of flatten out and curl back up here. We're also getting on the 5-minute, even though it was below the 9 SMA and VWAP, it got this really nice hammer candle here. And then in here, it had that final little, that little shake. And I thought to myself, it had the soak here with this nice lower wick off 144. And it to the penny, 144, tapped it, soaked it, and just had this beautiful hammer. Next candle pushed higher, retested VWAP in the 9 SMA on the 5-minute, and then pulled back. And I thought to myself, I'm going to buy this pullback. So I bought the pullback. Obviously, in hindsight, I wish I had bought 9,000 shares. I wish I had a 10,000 share position, but I didn't. I bought 2,000, and then I in my mind I thought, okay, if this starts to curl back up through here, I'll start to add once it breaks that 150 level. To then potentially retest high of day and go higher. Instead, a buyer just stepped up and squeezed this thing. Algos kicked in. There was a 100 share buyer here, and I guess Algos said, okay, there's no more sellers because no one was selling. I mean, the lack of liquidity on this candle right here. Buyers stepped up and just covering and buying just squeezed this thing all the way to 170. I ended up getting a 500 share sell, almost a top tick. That's crazy. I didn't realize I almost got the top tick on that. And then it pulled back, and I thought to myself, all right, I mean, buying pressure came in. The daily looks rock solid, like this is going to break out and start pushing to, 2. Obviously, ideally, I would love it if it went to 3 or even 4. But I thought that this had, with this significant buying pressure, I thought this could go higher. I noticed this sell-off candle right here was almost a 50% retracement, but it was holding the prior high of day. And I thought, all right, as long as this is kind of holding, I keep telling myself, stay patient and stay in the trade, let the thing move. But at the time I was up, $500 up here, or $400, whatever it was. So I was like really, really stoked. But I said, you know what, stick with it. You stay in the trade. So up here, I was up, $300-400, and I did recognize that this kind of looked like a bear flag, where it was kind of just trapping longs and shorts were just piling in. But I thought to myself, if this could, let me see if it could break 163 and push higher. I don't want to cut this too early. And then once this candle closed, I thought this feels really weak. And then once it started to flush here, I cut it as quick as I could. And I ended up getting 150 for the remaining 1,500 shares. In hindsight, I probably should have cut 500 shares up here and then could have re-added, 1,000 shares for the break. But I didn't. But yeah, $200 trade, should have been significantly better, but I'm not terribly mad at it. I'm not terribly mad at this trade. Frustrated the way it panned out, but I'm really not frustrated with myself. I could have cleaned this up where I sold another 500 shares up here, took some risk off the table, took some profits, and then allowed this, if this pushed higher, to either add back in or just sit on the 1,000 shares and let that ride, or and I could have cut this earlier. Once this broke below this candle low, probably should have cut it. But in my mind, I was thinking, what, I'll risk down to the 9 SMA or VWAP and let this kind of see what it does. But once it opened here, I cut it as quick as I could, and it flushed quick, and I got the 150 fill. So this clearly needs some time to reestablish itself. I don't see this going anywhere anytime soon, so I'll keep it on my secondary, but not something that I'll have on my primary until it perks back up and retests that 150 area. Click. This is what I had bought yesterday in after hours, and what an awful trade on my part, because I was buying it and accumulating through after hours through here, this 67 level. It fell off down here, and this big seller came in, and I thought, man, this is going to just flush hard, and I do not want to get caught where I'm already down $270. I don't want to get caught where this just flushes down to 60 or lower, just gets rugged, and there's no bid, so I cut it. And I took it off I kept it on my radar, but wasn't something I was looking to get back involved in, even though it had this really nice break right here on the 30-minute. But that being said, 515. That 71 level for the multi-day is so damn heavy. My goodness. Tested, tapped, pulled back, and it just cannot break. Sellers they're dominant in this thing. Now, I don't know if it's dilution or what, but there is a short that is dominating this thing, and they are not letting it get over 71. So, I'll keep it on my radar, still holding up relatively well, but it needs to get through that 71 level for me to get back involved. And that was why I hesitated in here to get re-involved. One, I was focused on MVST because I had significantly too much size in that overnight. But also, I told myself, I need to follow my rules. And if I'm not going to follow my rules, then I'm not going to make it in this game. And my rules were, or are, do not buy unless it is over the multi-day structure point of control. And it retested that 71 level, as I just showed, and it could not break that level. So clearly this had shorts still have control entirely over this thing. It provided a really nice scalp opportunity, but shorts have control of this thing. So I did not get re-involved in it. FAAS. This was one that was a similar setup in that if we go to 514, which was the initial 514, this had broke above. And what I've been finding lately is that anytime you get that first break on a quick break, it typically, and that's what happened here. It broke, pulled back, broke higher, pulled back to that level, and then broke higher. So the entry would have been here on this retest here for the push higher. Obviously, buying pressure just wasn't strong enough for it to push through to really get going to, say, 50 or even that day one high at 65. But that being said, my entry was not great at all. So I started buying on this small pullback in here, and then looking to get the push through. Cut that on the breakdown here for a small loss, and then re-added looking for the push higher. I added a little bit more size, not much, and then it just flushed. And I was trying to get out on the higher end of these wicks, but once it kind of just tapped, and the 9 was just pulling back aggressively, I thought to myself, I'd rather just cut it now because this looks like it's going to fade lower. And if I really feel conviction in this thing that it's going to go higher later on, I can always get re-involved. You know, the re-entry would have obviously been down here at the break of this really nice contraction, and then the break back over the 9 SMA, but just wasn't strong enough for me to keep this on my radar, unfortunately. But the 30-minute looked nice. The 4-hour obviously has this huge wick, but yeah, the 30-minute, you know, it just grinded higher off of this really nice hammer candle opening range. And then it had, I mean, I don't like this hanging man, but it pushed higher. And then this hanging man really put the nail in the coffin. So that kind of took that off my radar. Grip. So Grip was one where it got a really nice push in pre-market, and I believe, if I remember correctly, no, it's 510. So, right? 512. 512. Okay. So, 512. So in pre-market, this was holding above with some substantial raw volume, considering it was pre-market, above the multi-day point of control. So I saw this pullback, hard flush, and I believe I tried to get involved there. No, I got involved at the open. Yeah, I got involved at the open for the reclaim of VWAP and then the red to green move. It obviously didn't have the juice to go, and I got in. I just got in for 2 quick chops for $70, which was really frustrating. But I went in with too much size before it got real conviction or confirmation. You know, I'm not mad at the 142 buy, but that was really the buy that I should not have bought this 1,000 shares at 141. I should have waited for the 142 break, which I did here, and unfortunately that one didn't work out. But you know, that was the real, that was the confirmation trade of the breakout for high of day push. So, or the attempt for high of day push. So, not mad at the initial entry either. You know, got the break of high of day here. It obviously didn't work out in my favor. Should have held it instead of just giving up on it so quickly. Should have allowed it to kind of just pull back and hold the low of this candle at 139. But I cut it really quickly, again, because my mind was I don't want to lose any more than I have to, especially after being after taking such a aggressive loss in pre-market based off of my overnight hold in Click. So I was just trying to cut every single loser as quickly as possible, to just take any risk off the table to minimize any losses. Lace, this one pushed really aggressively right at the open, and I was looking for kind of like a quick backside. Ended up having 2 really nice scalps for a couple of cents. Nothing crazy. $5 on this trade, 35 on this one, and both in the same candle, 1 minute candle. So just really quick scalps. Took the bottom of this candle, basically 168. I got the bottom of that candle. It pushed up, and I just cut it somewhere in the middle. And then down here was looking for the push higher as it kind of just broke. Tried to break, thought it broke, but it didn't. Yeah, it was under the point of control at the time too, and that kind of had me a little hesitant. So that's why I just cut it so quickly. But this chop was just, it wasn't something that, it felt like, you know, I knew it was the backside, and the real move was out of the way already, but I felt as though maybe I could get a quick push to VWAP for, a quick 20 cents or so, but unfortunately that did not come, so not until later at least, and I was not involved. Lottery. This one popped up on my radar earlier on. This has been the setup that I just have not been. It's something that I take off of my radar, but lately it's been the one that really has been pushing higher. You get the initial push, heavy selling pressure with this hanging man, and then a really monster sell off, but then it soaks, holds the 9 SMA, and then just pushes higher into close. It just grinded, but still it pushed. So I took a small trade, quick trade in here. And it was funny because I bought it on the 9 SMA soak here or tap. And then once it broke below my candle that I bought, its low, and through the 9 SMA, I cut it. And then as soon as I cut it, the bid stepped up and pushed this straight up to 158. Which was pretty annoying, but it is what it is. That's the name of the game. So I took a $10 loss on that. I took a small size because I knew it was extended, and I thought to myself, I'll add if this breaks high of day, or provides some sort of setup where maybe it breaks my candle high, and then I look to add more, but my entry candle high, that is. But that opportunity did not present itself for me. It was there, but I was already out. MVTA, this was one where, if I remember correctly, 414. Yeah, this had broke just above the point of control for the multi-day. And it looks like it's trying to form an inverse head and shoulders potentially. I'll keep it on my radar for tomorrow, but it had really nice volume in after hours, and then today, I don't know if it had news. I would assume it did. Earnings were a couple of days ago. Maintains buy, $3 target. Yeah, so I guess it's just finally catching some eyes after the earnings came out, but the 4-hour looks rock solid. I really like this setup. This is definitely something that I'm going to keep on my radar. Just a really, really nice structure. It looks like the accumulation phase has kind of ended, and it's looking, MMs are looking to start to distribute, push this higher to distribute. So I'm going to keep this on my radar into tomorrow. But I look to take the high of daybreak. It broke higher, but then flushed. And I took small size. I wasn't looking I was looking to size in, but I thought to myself, there's not enough volume for me to really consider adding at the high of daybreak at 86. Especially because the ask kind of just it went from straight from 86 to 87, and there was nothing at 86.10, 86.20, whatever. It just pushed, and then it started to fade, broke below the 9, and I just cut it. So small loss on that, $10 loss. MDST, this was wow, girl. I was buying this yesterday and had a really, really nice gain, but did not scale out enough. It then flushed hard overnight, and then in pre-market, the bid and the ask was just dropped. At one point, it was at 168, 167, but then it started to pick up right here. Buyers stepped up and perked this. Bought through 164, but there was no ask at 175, and the ask went back to 177, 178, so that it was it didn't look P&L wise, at least in pre-market, that I was down. It then started to just chop around but grind higher. And I was thinking to myself, man, maybe you should start to consider scaling out somewhere in here. But the 4 hour and the 30-minute just looked, and the daily just looked so rock solid. I mean, you had hammer candle, hammer candle, hammer candle, green candle. So I thought to myself, you know what, this is probably going to break this 52-week high, make a new one today, which it did, but sellers just stepped up and eviscerated this thing. So I started scaling, recognizing that, even though there was a really nice buyer that stepped up on the opening range candle on the 1 minute, I did not like that there was just this massive range on this 1 minute candle. You had 7 cents. And I understand it does have to establish itself at the open, but either way, I just didn't like it. It then had this evening star candle, so I started to scale out through here. I wanted to stay patient because it did break a 52-week high and was holding the low of day. But I scaled out of majority, and then I scaled out of it entirely right here on the breakdown below this candle low, and then VWAP, or close to VWAP. It broke down below the 9 SMA, so I cut the rest. It then perked back up, and I thought, all right, this is kind of holding the low of day. It's not kind of, it is holding the low of day, and we're getting a buyer that's kind of stepping it up and trying to perk it back up over the 9 SMA. Maybe it closes over the 9 SMA, reclaims, and then pushes back through. So I added 1,000 shares, just smaller size relative to the size that I had overnight. And then it broke down, and I cut it once it broke down below low of day. Ended up getting a crappy fill, but $85 on that. Should have taken, I think I was up like 200 up here, 300 maybe. And I should have just started to scale out after this evening star. But I was just... I just didn't recognize it. I didn't catch it. NCL. This one was a really rock solid trade, and I love this daily into tomorrow. I think this is going to go to new 52-week highs. I mean, absolute monster ascending triangle here with this break into a new ascending triangle, looking to break. I think this goes to $1. We'll see. I was adding at the open earlier on, even though this only had at the time, like 20,000 shares exchanged. It was super, super thin. So I bought 500 shares here, then cut it as it broke down, thinking, you know what, like, is this worth my time? Is this really going to go? I keep telling myself, don't get involved in tickers that have these upper wicks, especially on the daily. 4 hour has upper wicks, but for some reason I just felt like it was strong. So I took smaller size. Then I started to take 1,000. I took 1,000 shares here, and then once it broke that 66 level, I bought, and unfortunately I got a pretty crappy fill. All right, so then it broke, and then it flushed. The bid just ripped right from out from under it. So I thought to myself, man, this probably isn't going to work out. I shouldn't have done that. But I bought 100 shares here stupidly. Bring this candle back up, and then the bid started to step up, and it was just chopping around above VWAP. Then right here had a nice buyer, and I had a limit order just under that, the prior day high, or not prior day high, it was this base high from this day, which was $68.99. So I had it just sub that, got me out there, and then pushed higher. I started scaling out of 1,000 share tranches, then started 500 shares, and then once it broke down below the 9 on the 1 minute, I started to cut the rest. Added back in up here as it broke to a new high of day, but it felt kind of weak, so I cut it. But then it just chopped around all day and held the point of control. So I added back in end of day, looking for potential push through. Obviously, it didn't get it, but it held VWAP and the point of control throughout the rest of the day. And now it's starting to perk up in after hours. I think this goes to $1 within the next couple of days. So this is one that is like top priority for me, where I'm going to look to try and get 5 to 10,000 shares on this and just ride this to $1. Definitely going to be a choppy ride, a very, very bumpy ride, but I think this has the juice. So we'll see. Last but not least, SDM. This one was just beautiful. Hindsight, I wish I bought 1,000 shares, but I'm really happy with the 500 share position that I bought. Bought 100 shares over here for this little ascending triangle / 1 minute cup and handle. But I wanted to take a starter in here for the $7 hold. The bid was kind of, it was at 7, but then it started to drop down into the 6s, but price never dropped down to into the 6s, so I was happy with that. So it perked up right here, and I was about to pull the trigger, but I said no, stay patient, wait for it to break above 731, and I didn't. It pulled back. I was going to add through here, but I didn't like that the 1 minute 9 was pulling back and crossing through. But once it perked up right here, I said to myself, you know what? This looks like it's ready to go. I'm going to add 400 shares, and I did. I pulled the trigger on 400 shares, especially considering if we look at the 5 minute, the 5 minute bounced right off of the 9 SMA and then perked right back up. So I added there after it bounced off the 9 SMA right there and then perked up, crossed over the 9 SMA on the 1 minute, added 400 shares, and then it just pushed straight through. It broke through here, and actually I think it broke through. I slapped 400 shares for the break higher, and I ended up getting just an unbelievable fill at 721. I think that's what happened. It then pushed. It was hesitating, it was stalling at 731 at high of day. So I thought, you know what, rather than sitting here and this potentially flushing, considering it was relatively low volume on the day as well. I don't even know how many shares were exchanged today. SDM 660, but at the time it was light because all the volume came in here. But I sold 100 shares at high of day. It then pushed up, and I stayed patient even through these pullbacks. I did not like that candle, but it held this 740 level on this candle and this candle based off of this candle low at 741. 741, 741. Yeah, so all three were 741. It then broke higher. I sold some at 776, and then I sold another at 844 as this pushed higher. And then I was holding on to 200 shares, looking for this to just hold the 9 SMA here, and then it flushed, and I got a pretty crappy fill. It flushed hard and fast, and I ended up getting, did I get the bottom tick? 750? I got 751. Yeah, I basically got bottom ticked. But anyway, kind of sucks because it was up like $400 or $500 up here. But it is what it is. Yeah, I was up $500 up here. Because that's another $200 plus. But anyway, is what it is. I'm happy with the trade. I stayed patient, allowed it to, sold into strength, scaled most, and then held the rest for, it to kind of validate itself that it was gonna, the trend was over, and it wasn't going to go any further. So. Really, really happy with today. Tomorrow, going to keep it lighter to start, get a feel for the market, see what types of opportunities are out there, but really going to hone in and focus on the leaders and make sure that my watch list is rock solid first thing in the morning. Going to be remote in that I'll be down at the beach at the in-laws beach house, so I will be working from just dual monitors, but it is a desktop, which is nice. But unfortunately, I won't have all four. So, going to require a little bit more discipline than my home rig, but we'll go from there. So yeah, that was today.